Hi there, this is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from Key Largo. I'm here with a friend of mine. We've been acquaintances for quite a few years in Key Largo time. Kanahou, Alana. Say hi, Kanahou.
Hey, how's it going?
Great, great. I want to thank you for being on the show. Kanahou, I'll give a little background here, how we met. Our daughters are friends. My daughter, my stepdaughter, I came into her lives when she was a couple years old, and Kanahou's both her children were going to a Montessori school on Transylvania Avenue, and I think your wife was also a teacher there at when a couple years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we've met, and over the years we've known each other. We've had some dealings. We actually. A small story. You had have an entrepreneurial spirit, and we're going to talk about that, and it's really important down here in the Keys. You painted the van I had when I had that delivery for the Keys. It was a beautiful blue. You were doing that business for a little
True,
while.
Tiffany blue. Yeah.
Tiffany blue. Yes, yes. That was a beautiful van. I mean, it wasn't a beautiful van, but it became a beautiful van as you painted. People used to point out the color. I wanted it to pop. And it's funny right now with the things that are going on. Actually, I probably would have done pretty good if I held on to it for a couple more years, because I was doing general delivery, and right now everything is delivery. But enough about me. We're going to talk about you, Kanahou.
All right.
So you are. How long have you've been in the Keys since 2003, and you come from?
I come from Maui, Hawaii.
Okay, and you're
that's where I was born.
Mm-hmm. And you're part native islander, Hawaiian. What's the correct way to call it? Hawaiian, right?
Hawaiian, yeah. Hawaiian Heritage, Hawaiian blood. I'm actually 37.5%, which is it's quite high in 2020. Because of the dilution of the bloodline,
mm-hmm.
that I would be alive in this day and age and have that amount of Hawaiian in me. Every year they have to reduce the amount of Hawaiian you have to get Hawaiian homeland. So there's free land in Hawaii for Hawaiians,
mm-hmm.
Education, all kinds of stuff like that, and they have to constantly lower that level of blood to keep giving back to the Hawaiians, because there's not much that have a lot of blood in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, there's some really. It's an interesting historical story, and maybe depending on what perspective you take it from. But I imagine I would take it from the perspective of the native Hawaiians, how Hawaii became a state in the Union. It was a forcible annexation of it. I'm a history buff myself, but that was probably the beginning of America's going outside the contiguous borders of manifest destiny. If anybody understands manifest destiny, that was the idea that America had this predestined idea that it was supposed to expand throughout the whole continent, and then there was, Hawaii was extraterritorial one, and that was in the 1800s, right? And they
mm-hmm.
held out pretty. I mean, they did a pretty good job of staying independent as long as they did, considering the resources the U.S. brought to bear in Hawaii. But that's for another show sometime. But you guys were able to preserve it. You ever seen the movie The Descendants? You ever seen the movie?
A long time ago.
Okay, yeah. And it was funny because that was really, they had just small, minute, it seemed just like looking at the people that had a very tiny bit of Hawaiian heritage in it. So you grew up in the islands. Let's hear it.
Well, I was born in Maui, 1981, and I grew up in Maui on Maui in a town called Pukalani, which is about as country as you can get. As you would drive through, the fields would be with pineapples and cows. Sugarcane fields, stuff like that. And we lived up in the mountains. And about 7 years old, a couple of days or so before my 7th birthday, we moved to Guam, where my dad started the first ever tire store in the island of Guam. Now, the island of Guam is 30 miles long, 5 miles wide, and it has over 100,000 cars on it and no tire store, no tire center. Everybody got their tires from a gas station. And so there'd be lines around the block every single day for people waiting to get tires, and the gas stations just couldn't handle the mass. Uh-huh. And so my dad went over there, bought an old plumbing warehouse, and did everything from changing tires to safety inspections to alignments, brake jobs, all that stuff that they never had on that island.
Wow.
And very successful. Uh-huh. It's still there today, actually. So I grew up there, another island, really. So the island life didn't much change for me. And then in 1996, my dad got really homesick, and we moved back to Hawaii, to the island of Oahu, where we lived with my grandmother and my auntie. Mm-hmm. And we lived there for a year, mm-hmm. where my dad started another business through Hunter Engineering, which is, if you've ever gotten an alignment or got your tires rotated, that machine is well known. It's called Hunter. Mm-hmm. He was the regional salesman for that area, all of Hawaii. And so I went to school, I was 10th grade in Oahu. So I left the beginning of my freshman year. 10th grade, I went to Oahu, and we spent a year there. And then we went to the Big Island, to Hilo, after for my junior and senior year. And that's where I graduated from high school. Yeah. Then I got a job in Denver, Colorado, with Frontier Airlines after going to a little trade school in Washington to get you prepared for the airlines, and I lived in Denver, Colorado for about a year.
Well, wait, let's backtrack right there. So you were
okay.
You're born in Maui, went to Guam, back to Maui, then back to the Big Island of Hilo for your junior and senior year high school. What made you
in Hilo?
In Hilo. I'm sorry, I got it. My
No
pronunciation. I was a lot of these island names were actually big time clues in crossword puzzles, but I never learned.
Really?
I learned how to spell. I learned how to spell because they always talked about it, and I go, what is that? What are they referring to? And they're referring to Hawaiian Islands. And what is the main island? What is the Big Island? And because it's a chain of Hawaii is a chain of volcanic islands, right?
Correct.
And so that'll figure in to the storyline here later on. And Guam is, what is Guam?
Guam is a territory of the United States?
No. I know it's a territory of the United States, and it came about, I think they got Guam and during the Spanish-American War. But geographically, it's an island, but I mean, what is it? Is it a volcanic island, alluvial island, reef?
Ooh, I tell you because I don't know.
Okay, no. I'm just one of these things in the Pacific. There was a preponderance, though, of a lot of volcanic islands in the Pacific, where and there's reef, and there are reef systems out there too. But what I found interesting that you here you are, you were born on an island, and you moved to a smaller island, Guam, and Guam. I think I just have this picture of it. Guam is pretty flat. Is Guam flat or is it mountainous? It's
pretty flat.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there are some mountains, but Yeah. It's not like Hawaii for sure.
Not at all.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, but generally it has more terrain variation than the Keys. So you did all this stuff. What was when you're in high school and stuff like that? Are you thinking when you're thinking of the future? Are you thinking of a future in Hawaii or a future on the mainland, or it doesn't really matter? You're just looking for a job.
I was thinking about a future outside of Hawaii.
Outside Hawaii. So you took
because things are. Go ahead.
No. Keep on things that are.
Things. People see Hawaii as this, lost paradise where it's so beautiful and everything's so nice, and that is true. But living there and growing up there is completely different on a local level. There's a whole different side of Hawaii that people don't really see. It's very prejudiced. When I went back to Hawaii, and I said I was 37.5%, but I didn't have the color of skin, let's say, that somebody who is 37.5% would carry there. Dark skin, I was very fair. My mom is Caucasian, so I have English, Irish, Scottish, German, French, Cherokee. I have a lot of other more Caucasian influence, and they treated me like a haole when I came back there. I didn't speak the pidgin, broken English that everybody spoke who grew up there. So I had very clean, enunciated English. And that's how white people talk, and so I was treated as such.
Okay. And that's a haole, you said?
Yes.
And that's, okay. That's a term for...
For a foreigner, the real translation is haule, which means kiss with no breath. So that's how the native Hawaiians describe the white people, the Captain Cooks and stuff that came over because they, kissed with no breath, just lips. Okay. That's how it was described. Yeah.
I'm not making light of it at all, but it seems like on any island or small town, small geographic area, that's the tendency to do things. You know what I mean? We do, here in the Keys, we call the people born here are conks, and they try to.
Correct.
Yeah, they try, but they don't really have a way to do it by looking at you. So that's slightly different. Okay, so you're in we're back to oh God, did I get Denver? Did I get Denver right? I didn't know if it was Colorado Springs or Denver. Your Frontier Airlines. What are you doing for Frontier Airlines?
A ramp agent. Bottom of the barrel. Yeah, just what a simple job at $9 an hour, loading the bags on and off.
That's you know what? That's not a okay. Hey, listen, that's not working at the counter at 7-Eleven. And at 7-Eleven, if you're working all night, sometimes is very interesting place to work. So you come from Hawaii, you're in Denver, you're on the mainland, you're back in the mountains though, right? Right?
Yep.
High elevation. It's a similar type. It's weird, even though it's not island, but Colorado. I can see some similarities between Colorado and Hawaii with their kind of attitude there. Colorado. It's a touristy area. So you're there. You're right out of high school, right?
Pretty much.
Okay, and you're working there. So what are your plans? You're working as a ramp agent. What are you seeing there?
I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the United States, and being part of the airline, you got free tickets to jump on one of your own flights and go to different places. And they gave you I think 10 tickets a year.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So you're a young man. You're just taking off. What places had a big impression on you? Obviously, I'm guessing that South Florida had a bit, but we'll probably land there. But before we get to Florida, no pun intended,
Hmm.
The places you've seen, like what remains with you today, like.
After traveling, and this is one of the reasons why it I guess it kind of went downhill. I had these expectations that America was going to look a certain way because I had been on an island my entire life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, after going to, let's say, Portland, being in Denver, it seemed like every place I went to, LA, California, it all looked the same. Everything was the same city. It had a Starbucks, it had McDonald's, and there were malls, and they were the same things. And it was kind of like everywhere I went, I just kind of saw the same thing.
So
there wasn't.
I'm doing the math here. This is the early 2000s. It's 2000. Were you in the airline industry during 9/11?
No. I actually left right before there. Yeah.
Okay. So you went
9/11. I was back home.
You were 1998, 1999, something like that?
It was actually so I graduated high school in 1999, went to the school for about 3 months, then went to Denver, and then by the time it was about, I don't know, I want to say May or June of 2001, I came back home.
Okay, back home to
the Big Island where my parents where I graduated from.
Hilo.
Mm-hmm.
Aha! I remember. I want to say I had the same problem with Spanish because I say "si" and "si." So okay, so now we're getting close. So you spent a couple years there. You're doing something. What are you doing back in home?
So I come back home because I can't stand the cold. When I first arrived in Denver, I loved it. I was like, wow, this is winter. This is great. And then toward the end of winter, it was like I didn't have a car, and there wasn't, it's hard to get around and do things, and I had to rely on a lot of people, and I just wasn't making enough to be able to pay my rent, pay car insurance, pay for a car, and I was fed up, and I was like, I'm going home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done with this, and I had been and traveled a bunch of places, so I came home, and
so we're back in Hilo, and what are you doing with yourself there? So let's move it along. You're back there. You're doing. Are you working in family business? You're working with your dad?
No. I came back, and I didn't have a very good welcoming back, to tell you the truth. My parents were kind of like, "What are you doing here?" You know what I mean? I thought you were done, and we didn't expect you to come back. And they're like, "Well, you're getting a job, and you got to do, if you're going to live here and stuff like that." So I went and started working at a grocery store called Sack and Save, actually.
Okay.
And I started pushing carts and, bagging groceries for, I think it was like $5.25 an hour or something like that over there. It wasn't much money.
Oh, wow.
Worked up to being in the deli. I got a promotion to $8.34 an hour. But in Hawaii, another struggle with Hawaii is that it's very, very difficult to find a full-time job that pays benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So what they like to do is they like to keep you at about 30 hours a week or 31, just right on the bare minimum, so they don't have to actually pay you.
Okay.
Because it costs a lot of money for healthcare and stuff, right? So I was struggling, and things were getting more and more tense at home. My father is an alcoholic, and we butt heads a lot because I never really had a father who showed me any kind of ways to be a man, I guess. And he constantly chose the bottle over his family.
So what are you doing? What socially? What's your social life? What is your life like? You talk about work.
Oh,
are you
socially?
Into that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, when I left because there was so much control in the house before I left, before 18. And I was so like, I guess, isolated from all that. I never did anything. Smoked my first cigarette when I was like almost 21 years old. And, but I was into heavily drinking and all kinds of drugs when I was in Denver. They're readily available. And I had that life. So one of the things was, well, maybe if I go home, that's not there. Well, another little secret, but Hawaii is a huge spot for meth. They call it ice or clear in Hilo, and it's a big hot spot. A lot of people doing it, and so I'm, drinking, I'm smoking, I'm doing things while I'm going to work, spending my money on, not making the best choices. And I end up getting in a fight with my father, an argument with my father where I struck him. He fell backwards. He hit his head, and he began bleeding. We all fell asleep, woke up in the morning. He had a, bandage on him, and he said he was sorry. I was just really looking for a father, looking for somebody to connect with, somebody to lead me, somebody to show me what to do. And he couldn't do that because I found out his dad never did that for him either. So he didn't know anyway. After that, I decided I was going to move out. So I started living with a friend of mine in Hawaii for about 2 or 3 months. And then I get this phone call from my uncle here in the Florida Keys. And he owns a construction company. And he says, hear what happened. And would you like to come out and build some houses? Previous, just a quick backstory, when I was going from 11th grade to 12th grade that summer in Hilo, my uncle had invited me out here to the Florida Keys to work for the summer building houses in the summer here. And I did. I came out. I lived with my grandma, and I did good. So he's like, hey, you did good when you were here. Would you like a job? I said, absolutely, and he sent me a ticket, and 2 days later, and I was here.
Wow. Okay. So I was going to ask you, what brought you here? So you come all the way. Now, we after this circuitous route that took you through all these places, Guam, starting on Maui, Guam, Hilo, Denver, back to Hilo, and now you're back. You're in the Keys. You're in the Keys. So you're 4 islands you got under your belt, and Denver, which is could be an island too, a Mile High City. So we can call it an island. So what I just had this vision now here in the Florida Keys. Now we're going to get back to what happened when you came here, but maybe we'll hold that till later. But apparently people down here call this is life in paradise. This is paradise and all that stuff. And I said, I always thought that was kind of a when people say paradise, you're in paradise. There's so many places out there that could be called paradise. There's Bali, there's Maui, there's Hilo. There's all these places. You got, these tropical islands. You got these Greek islands, and we call this paradise here. It is beautiful here. Well, we are a long, flat expanse of 43 keys that are connected by 42 bridges, I guess. I'm just doing the math there with that. That's it. But from the mainland, you could drive here. The biggest difference between the two is that if you wanted to get off the island here, you just get in your car and drive. And but culturally, I mean, we didn't have a strong native culture down here. You can call it the conch culture, but that only goes back maybe it's mainly Key West if you think about it, because Key West existed. The rest of the Keys are kind of like sparsely populated. So they like to call them conchs, but when you come down here, and they always have this thing, you got to be here 15 years to be a freshwater conch and this and that. You know, it's really I mean, there isn't really an exclusive attitude to that. But you came here, and you're working with your uncle. Did you didn't have a big change in your lifestyle, though, did you?
No. I mean, it was a change because there was more security, I guess. But as far as island life, it didn't seem much different than my whole life, you know.
Yeah, I know. Right here, you talked about crystal meth in the Hawaiian Islands. Here, it's alcohol and cocaine, right?
Correct.
Right. And that's been since the late 70s, early 80s, I guess. I mean, and I guess marijuana worked its way through both islands. So here you are, you're cut away from your family. You're here with your uncle, but are you finding it easy? You come here, and it's 2003. If I get your timeline right. 2003.
Yes.
And
it was February 2003, a couple 2 or 3 weeks before I turned 21 years old.
Okay. And before you release the hounds, you're out there doing whatever you want, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And how's that working out for you?
You know, it was working out really well. You know, I had a steady job. I thought I was doing very well. I was, doing the construction life, which anybody who's done that knows there's a lot of vulgarity and man kind of, something I was never really brought up in, the manly man, swinging a hammer and getting dirty and cussing and drinking after work, because that was the normal, right? Have a couple beers at the bar before I was even 21. So I thought, wow, this is great, and I did that for about 3 years. Let's see, it was 2003, 2006. Right before that, let's see, it was 2010, I'm going to say a couple years before it was a year in. I was about a year into working with my uncle, and I got a DUI.
Yeah.
I was right there across from Circle K in Tavernier.
Okay.
I was doing donuts across the street, and there happened to be a state trooper there. And I had a CDL license that I almost lost because of it. I had to go through probation. I had to go through level 1 DUI school. People had to drive me around. And it was, and I thought, oh my gosh. And so the first thing I did was I sought out Alcoholics Anonymous. The funny thing is I had been going to Al-Anon because my father was an alcoholic. So I was very familiar with that group, but never that other group. And so I did 90. That's what my uncle recommended. He goes, if you could do 90 meetings in 90 days, and he said, if you can stay sober for a year and not running back to it at the end of the year, you probably don't have a problem. That's what he told me. And I did. 90 meetings, 90 days, didn't drink, kept going back to work. I didn't have a problem.
Wow.
So I thought,
So
2006.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
No. So you had that you had that thing in convince yourself. You became comfortable with the idea that, oh well, it's not that big a deal because I was able to do it for 1 year. So
Yes.
what happened?
Going to the meetings, I thought, this is not me. I mean, these guys, they're asking me, well, how much do you drink a week? And I was like, I don't know, like a 24 pack. They're like, I do a 24 pack in a day. I was like, okay, these guys got problems. I don't have a problem. I'm too young to have this problem. And so I went on with my life. Then I met a girl, and I met her family, and they were drinkers like on the weekend. Like nobody drank during the week, but on Friday and Saturday they would have some drinks, have a barbecue, and so I started to fall into that. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe this is normal. This is how people do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, normal.
Because these people, they seem to have, they have their crap together. You know, I don't see any red flags anywhere. What I didn't realize is that that life wasn't for me either. And it just drug out my heritage of my father being an alcoholic, his father being an alcoholic, my grandmother on my dad's side, and then my grandfather, and different family members on each side. And when I started to trace it back after, I was sober for a year and started to do some tracing, I realized there was a lot of alcoholism in my family. Decades and decades of, generations and generations. And, but I didn't care. I was happy. I decided to marry this girl and have a child with her. Moving along, I also decided to walk away from my construction job because I was like, you know what? I'm better than this. I'm more than this. I can do something else. And I started selling cell phones for Nextel. If you remember them.
Yes, push to talk.
Yeah, it was pretty popular. I was second in sales. I was living my life. I had a newborn child. Things seemed to be going great. Then had another child, and that's when it kind of started going downhill. I remember I was talked into starting to work for the water company down here because it was secure, right? And, you need to have a pension and a retirement, and you got kids now. You can't be just, living off a commission. And so I started, and I worked for the Florida Keys Aqueduct Authority here in the Florida Keys on the transmission line, which in the Keys, it's a very unique water system where our water comes from Florida City, and there's a pipeline that comes, there's a 36-inch pipeline that comes down the stretch and through the Florida Keys and tapers down all the way to 12 inches in Key West. And so I was in charge of maintaining that line between Key Largo or Florida City to Layton or Long Key. And so I began working there. And after the second child and some hardships with the marriage, a lot due to the drinking. So I could see, how they always talk about alcoholism as a progressive illness, right? That it just keeps getting more and more. Where I remember starting out when I would go to work that I would, like have a couple, and then it just progressed over the years to where by the time I hit my second DUI, 2010, that I had progressed to almost drinking an entire Mickey's or a Heineken, almost like a 40 ounce, but they don't have 40 ounces here. They're like 22 ounces.
Yeah.
On the way home, so that I wouldn't have to deal with home life.
Uh-huh.
And trying to push that down and trying to mask those feelings of inadequacy because I didn't know what I was doing. No. I ain't never been a father before, and I didn't have any guide on what that looked like. And ended up not wanting to live anymore. Ended up realizing that, I'd made the same mistake twice, and the world would be better off without me.
Okay.
And one day I came home from work early, very distraught over the entire mess. Got my gun and was at the kitchen counter. Loaded it up, stuck the pistol in my mouth, closed my eyes, and the door opened to my house, and it was my brother. And he asked me what I was doing. And I told him that he needed to just leave and get out. This was not his problem. And he sat there and he talked me down from a ledge. That it made me realize that the world would not be better without me. And that I would hurt more people by doing this than I would having them avoid pain. So I put the gun down and just broke down hard. He saved my life. I mean, he wasn't supposed to be home. I don't know why he was there. I came home early from work. There should have been no reason anybody had stopped me. But he did. And,
what was your first steps after that? Yes. What now?
He had been going to church. And he had been, and he wanted me to go. He said, "Hey, look, I know you don't like religion or anything like that, but this new pastor, he's young, he's got kids just like you. He's a father. He's in the mix. You know what I mean? Like I think you should check it out." And I denied it, but I saw, and as I denied going and constantly declining, I was just more and more angry. I was more and more angry. I didn't have any tools on how to deal with these two. So now I'm a single dad, right? With two kids. And I'm frustrated because I'm like, well, now who's going to want me? I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not doing these. Like, what am I doing here? I'm still going to work every day. And
wait. And, what made you, when did you make the decision not to drink? Now,
So after going to church and starting to get in with that group, I start to feel like there was another life out there for me. And I had been slowing down, but what the one change that happened, which was June 23rd, 2007, was that, 2010, was that I was outside, came home, the boys were there, and there was a cooler that had been there for days, and it had some beer in it, warm beer. I came home, opened up a Corona, went to go take a sip, and my daughter Malia came running out, and she was, 3 years old. And she said, "Daddy, can you help me learn about time?" And I was like, I looked at the bottle, I looked at her, and I was like, what am I doing? And I poured the bottle out, I dumped all the beer out, and I went in there and I spent the rest of the day with my kids and and from that day on, I made a decision that whatever else was going on with my life, I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to being the best dad ever for my kids. And I quit drinking. So it's been that was a lot. That
10
brought up a
years.
lot of
10,
memories there.
almost 10 years. 10 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, 10 years
Mhm.
and 2 months. Um,
Yeah.
so you're working, and I mean, listen, that was, fortunate for you. You had your brother, and whenever we come across a story like that, we do suggest that if you ever, if any of the listeners ever feel like that, and try to make your first instinct calling the hotline,
Mhm.
and seeking out a friend, someone to be supportive. But okay, so,
Mhm.
and not to gloss over it at all, you're working for the water company.
Mhm.
You're still working for the water company?
Yeah, I'm still working for the water company, and there happened to be a couple months kind of before that, before, like, right after the whole kind of we're breaking up kind of deal. What happened was I came home and, my own bedroom door was locked, and I got super mad because we were disconnected. I grabbed a pillow and I grabbed my blanket and I got in the truck. And at the time, I had just started a new position at the aqueduct as a wastewater operator, a trainee in Layton, and that's where I would drive to work. And so I jumped in the truck, and I had already been drinking, and I got a DUI, another one, on my way down there, and went to jail. Wasn't able to show up for my job, and everything that comes with it. I did get a lawyer this time. They knocked it down to a reckless driving, but I actually still had to go to level 1 DUI school all over again. And this time I had a breathalyzer in my vehicle for a year, mandatory. They had changed the law since my last DUI. And so I had to explain to my children. And I thought, being the good dad that I am, I'm going to tell them the truth. I remember a lot of things being hidden from me when I was growing up, and I didn't want to be that dad anymore. So I told Malia, this is what this is what I did, this is what happened. Every time I have to blow into this to keep the car running. And and it was rough, it was rough, and I wasn't drinking, but I was trying to be the best dad, but it was such a struggle. I was alone, and I decided, I'm gonna live my life though. I started really getting involved in the church, really getting involved in activity. I started playing volleyball, which I love, 3 times a week. Anything I could do to get out and get around people who are good for me that had kids as well. And that's where I met my wife, Tiffany. We had gone to the same church, been playing volleyball 3 times a week for the past 8 months, and I never even spoke a word to her. Just watched. I thought, for sure, she's totally out of my league. And you know what she looks like, so, and you know who she is, so that goes right along with it. And when we were at church, and our pastor was like, all right, turn to the person next to you and tell them that you love them. So funny, I turned to the right, and she was right there. And she looked at me and she's like, I love you. And I was like, I love you. and that's how it started. And I started to court her after that. And she had a great story as well. She had 2 DUIs too. She had a breathalyzer in her car as well. She had just gone through everything I had just gone through, but didn't have any kids. And so we ended up after a year of dating, I asked her to marry me. To 3 months of dating. Our first kiss was 11/11/2010. On 1/1/11, I asked her to marry me at midnight on the dance floor. And 11/11/11, we got married in the Florida Keys.
Wow. Okay. You know, it's as a side note, and I'm familiar with recovery. I'm not familiar with becoming sober when you're young, because I was 44. But I could only imagine how difficult that would be when you're in your mid 20s, being single and considering a lifestyle down in the Keys in particular. You're trying to meet somebody and being so fortunate to belong to a group such as your church group, where you're able to meet your soulmate, your wife, your partner.
Yeah.
And that's a gift. So here you are. You got someone else to join you on your journey of sobriety and journey through life, and they know who you are. You're working. You started working now. Are you still at the water department when this is going on?
I'm at the water company.
Yeah.
I'm at the aqueduct. And I'm training to be a wastewater operator.
Uh-huh.
So wastewater operator is a person who operates and maintains the transfer from wastewater, which we flush down the toilet, into nutrient deficient water that's either injected into the earth 90 feet down, or spread across through irrigation to water grass and trees and landscapes and stuff like that. So to be a wastewater operator, you actually need to be underneath the training of a licensed operator for 2,080 hours on a plant.
Okay.
And go ahead.
No, you know what? I'm going to go in it's though interesting knowing about wastewater stuff like that. I wanted to quick forward to say, because it's interesting you started doing this, because when did you develop the interest in your wastewater story, your passion for life, and all that stuff about environmental, leading a environmentally conscious way of life, clean energy, wastewater, and things like that. Did you fall into it reverse, like you're studying to be a wastewater treatment? And there's shows out there that are probably better suited for describing the process of doing it, of treating wastewater. But the idea of becoming conscious of, the kind of lifestyle that you want to be able to leave, I guess, a reverse footprint where you're taking things, the bad stuff away,
helping the world. Yeah, exactly. I remember the day perfectly, like it was yesterday. I was working at the aqueduct, and the position became available, and I drove down to Marathon, which was where the systems were, and I met a man named Tom Feaster, and he took me up on the top of a wastewater treatment plant, and he looked around and he goes, "Do you smell anything?" And I said, "No." And then I looked at basically it looked like pool water going out the back. And he told me that this is a natural process, and all you really had to do was add air to wastewater, and it would create these bugs that would eat our waste. Well, if that isn't a brilliant design from our creator, which I'm on that path right now, it blew my mind, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
So let me hear this correct. You injecting air, or did you say oxygen? Was it air?
Air
into wastewater creates the organisms that eat
Mm-hmm.
the waste that
Mm-hmm.
humans produce.
Yep.
Okay, I just want to get that correct. You're right. It is, and what better way can you use instead of using harmful chemicals and things like that? So continue.
Correct.
Okay.
And I was just amazed by it because I was already amazed by our Creator and what He had already done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know what, this is something that I can, like, this can be who I am. Like, I can contribute to the world. I'm saving the world. It's the dirtiest job on the planet, yet it's the greenest job on the planet. Replenishing our water supply, by not wasting what we already have. And in the Florida Keys, because we are on a reef, the highest level of processing of the water is required in the state of Florida. Like, Florida has no reciprocity with any other state. You have to come here, you have to take the test here, you can't come from somewhere else. You know what I mean? It's high standards. And I thought, man, I could be really good at this. And I took off.
Oh, okay. So wait, Florida's the benchmark for water treatment. Waste treatment.
Florida and California have the strictest nutrient removal standards in all of the world, because here in Florida we live on a reef, right? So when we inject that water right into the ground, it has to be nutrient deficient so that it doesn't create algae blooms, remove the dissolved oxygen, so the fish, you know what I mean, they'll die.
Okay.
If we keep putting nutrients in the water.
Okay. Well, and just to inform the listeners, until when I came down here in 2007, the transition was starting. Almost all the Keys was a septic tank. Back in prior, the early 2000s was if you moved down here, you had a septic tank, and the problem with a septic tank, you eventually would leach those nutrients, and the rock is porous, and it's not going to stay there. It's not going to be sequestered forever, and so what they decided to do is saying they're going to have to treat these things and not try to hide it, think they're hiding it below.
Mm-hmm.
So here you are. You got this newfound, maybe a growth in the understanding of what you're meant to do. So you become trained as a wastewater treatment person. What makes you transition right now to think that, you know what, I'd like to? Am I skipping too fast forward ahead?
A little bit.
Let's go fill in the spots then before that.
Okay, so I start, I'm working at the aqueduct. I'm treating these, I'm being a wastewater operator, and through time I win multiple awards through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, who's our authority in the Florida Keys. They put me on the cover of TPO magazine, which is Treatment Plant Operator magazine. It's a global magazine because of the work that I've done by reducing the amount of nutrients that goes out into the waters. And Layton was a big hot spot, and now it's not. And but they had sent me to other plants. Hey, fix this plant. Hey, can you, do this? And I got to the point where coming in every day, I just didn't really have a challenge for myself anymore, and I'm a very self-motivated person. I like being challenged. So I decided to look at a map, and I found out that in the Florida Keys, how unique it is, there's only a couple systems that exist that treat wastewater. But there is about 5 different smaller plants, meaning under 100,000 gallons, that are outside of the service area that have to have their own wastewater treatment plant, and those would be staying forever. As long as there's people here, that wastewater plant has to be there. They can't take it down. They can't transfer it, nothing. So I decided to seek out those plants. And long story short, I got into one plant and did it the same time I was doing the aqueduct. And then in 2016, 2016, I acquired a wastewater treatment plant at Chica Lodge, which was my dream plan.
When you say acquired it, you mean you became...
I got a contract to operate it.
Okay. And it was your dream job. Or your dream...
It was my, dream job, because they have... Chica Lodge is, if you've never been, it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And they have 27 acres of landscaping, golf course, all that stuff. And their wastewater treatment plant, all it did was the water from the hotel would be treated and then sent out about between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning through an irrigation system and would water the entire property. And I was like, this is real. I can see when I do something, I can see the instant effect. And I loved it.
Okay, just so that for the listeners and stuff, 27 acres is a lot of land here in the Keys. If you're in Bozeman, Montana, that may seem minuscule, but we have to do a lot down here. There's not a lot of extra land. There's a lot of people, a lot of visitors per acre here. So being able to do that, take that wastewater and distribute it across 27 acres in a high usage intensive environment such as the Keys is a really pretty big deal. Okay, let's go back. I mean, because I understand what you're saying because of, the 27 acres in the Keys, but the listeners may not understand that.
Absolutely. And water, down here, it's about after 50,000 gallons a month, you're paying about $11.73 per 1,000 gallons. Mm-hmm. So that costs a lot to water the grass. And what is my biggest pet peeve is watering grass with potable water, meaning drinkable water.
Yes.
That is like the top of my tippy top nerve. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people could be drinking this. People don't have water in the world.
Yeah.
We're watering our grass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pet peeve.
We use our AC water. We reclaim that, and we try to save all our rainwater. Though there was a movement about that some places about not saving the water. I don't know if that was in the Keys, but in other municipalities across the United States, that's a big deal. If you do recover all your water, because the water is a rainwater, if you recover too much of it, you're not replenishing the water table. I guess that's what it is. But I mean, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So here's a big pet peeve. People using, and you see it. I mean, you see it down here when you see people with the lawns that have the natural, the grass. What do you call natural grass? Because it's not really natural, is it?
Yeah. Right. No.
Grass is not
so
natural.
Broad in here, right?
No,
we live on a reef.
Yeah. It's not. It's for, a lot of chemicals and things like that go into producing a lawn. I mean, probably the kindest thing to do is either the rock or, to be able to maintain a lawn here, you'd have to put a lot of chemicals down. And then, like you said, using fresh water or drinking water or potable water, the terminology for that potable water being able to drink it, considering how many people, have to go miles to maintain, to have the water they need to cook. And drink. Yeah, it's shameful. So you got this job, and you're working. You got the contract at Chica Lodge, and it's
2016.
16. The end of 2016, something like that.
February 2016.
And then it's your baby. So
it's my baby. I'm in love, and I make the decision to walk away from the Florida Keys Aqueduct and go out on my own off of this final contract, because I had one contract for another plant, but I needed just a little bit more income to be able to say, okay, I feel secure enough. This can be my job, my business, and acquired that contract 2016.
Okay, which is February, which is approximately 7 months, give or take a couple weeks, from a seminal event here in the Keys and South Florida, Hurricane Irma.
Correct. Hurricane Irma, yeah. That, really, it crushed my hopes, but then it actually created dreams I didn't even know I really wanted.
Yeah.
So Hurricane Irma was not very kind to Chica Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Hurricane Irma, it really destroyed a lot of vegetation, but it also destroyed the wastewater treatment plant. The insurance company called it as a total loss, and they gave them the right to go ahead and rebuild another one. And I accepted. I said, previous to that, for 2 years, I had been, approaching management going, hey, the best thing is let's move this wastewater treatment plant, because it was right in the middle. If you remember, it was right in the center of the parking lot, right in the middle of everywhere.
Yeah.
And
the parking lot was
right
pretty
on
much
display.
in front. Yeah, the parking lot was in front of is in front of the main building there when you come in.
Right.
So you would come up and park, and that's that. And that was not an unusual thing in the Keys to see that. I mean, there's restaurants you come in and stuff like that, and that's the first thing you would acquaint yourself with is that smell. And people became used to it.
Right.
So okay. Yeah. So you were suggesting to move that, and then Irma comes up. It's a total loss. So now you're built. Are you building the old one in a different place, or are you building a new one in a different place? Like, is it? I know you had the opportunities totaled, so obviously you had approached them on moving it from where it was in the center of the parking lot to another location. Are you building a new processing wastewater treatment center?
Yes.
Like a totally
so
new
we're
process.
building. It's the same process, but brand new tanks, brand new equipment, and it's put in the furthest corner away from all the guests.
Okay.
Out on I think it was the hole number 3 of the golf course.
Got it.
And so I had regulated the had done a lot of research and a bunch of different what's it called companies, and found the best place to build this thing was in Texas. So I found a company out in Texas where they would build it for me, high grade steel plant, and then drive it to the Florida Keys, and then I would install it. Jim, I'm sorry. My partner's calling. I have to pick this up. Can we pause real quick? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, hold on one second.
Okay, we're back. You had a call to take, and you know what? That's the nice thing about doing a recording. You were telling us about getting the tanks from Texas to transport them here. You had to do the installation at Chica Lodge for the new wastewater treatment plant. Okay.
Right. And so we built it. It was a great experience. I documented the whole thing on YouTube. I have a whole YouTube channel directed to it, so you can see everything I did. And so we started. So when you start a new plant, it's called a startup, right? And that startup can take almost a year sometimes to get the right biology, work all the kinks out, all the bugs out, and the equipment and stuff like that, to get it producing good water. And in that year, I struggled a lot, because I had done so many different things in my wastewater career, but nothing was like this.
So here you are. You're sober. You're working on a project. Your baby is wastewater treatment, and raising a family. You're you and it just, I guess, part of sobriety is being able to deal with those things without having the former crutch we used to have.
The crutch,
Yeah,
of
the
alcohol
crutch,
and
yeah.
drugs.
The empty spaces we used to fill with alcohol or whatever drugs, you know. So here you are. You're going home every day, and you got this. You're working on this project. So I'm going to take it from there. There, go.
And there's just these things that I wasn't privy to before, like anxiety and stress. And I mean, I was working sometimes 16 hours a day out there, you know what I mean, worried about it. So then in turn, that would come home to me not being the best dad and the best husband and stuff like that. So I thought, you know, well, I don't need something to change my state, but I need something to kind of help me through this time. And I started researching CBD. Okay. I started at a small business here in the Florida Keys called Weird Trees down in Isla Mirada. And the girl there, Jana, she was super knowledgeable about it, and she sold CBD in the store. And we talked to her, me and my wife, for about an hour because, you know, we were super concerned because we were like, okay, we're both sober. We do not want to take any drugs. And she's like, it's not a drug. It's natural. It just gives you a relaxed feeling. It lowers anxiety. It lowers inflammation. And she's going on. And I'm like, and me and, you know, my wife were just like, I don't know. But we decided to, you know, give it a shot. So we ended up buying one of her pre-roll joints that was pure CBD that didn't have any THC in it, or less than 0.3 according to the law, which is technically hemp. We smoked it. My mind hadn't changed at all, but my body was completely relaxed. My heart had slowed down. Breathing was calmer. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. So over the next year of, you know, doing this, learning how this plant works, I started using CBD on a regular, and I really loved it because it really kept my mind straight, but it allowed my nerves to calm down. And that's exactly what I needed.
Yeah, several years ago, right, that same time, right after Irma, I started hearing about the cannabinoid CBD, and I was pretty sure that there was no THC because it was not regulated by the state. You didn't have to get a license to, you know, medical license for it. And the medical license, I think that came about in 2 years and things like that. So people always they misconstrued when they see CBD. They see yes, CBD can be derived from. You can get it from hemp. You can actually get it from marijuana. They just remove that, and there's all different levels. And there's people that require some people require the THC for, let's say, if you're a chemo patient and things like that. Which I understand. You know, medicine is medicine, and just because it's natural, you shouldn't poop. You know, throw the baby out with the bathwater there. And I heard about that CBD kind of activates a natural network in your body. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah. So CBD, the cannabinoid, activates a system in your body like the nervous system. It's throughout your whole body, called the endocannabinoid system. So whatever way you decide to take it, oil, smoking, edible, any which way you decide to take it, all it does is it activates the endocannabinoid system, which the endocannabinoid system is a natural healing system for your body, whatever ailments. And it's super diverse, anything from inflammation to anxiety, which you would think two of those things have nothing to do with each other, but the same product helps both. It kind of fills the void of what is needed in your body to retain it back to homeostasis.
It really wouldn't be surprising to a lot of people that a physical disruption of the body could target a psychological feeling, or a psychological disturbance could target, or you could derive a physical, you can have a physical manifestation of that. So, but
absolutely,
yeah, and it's because it's all tied together, and we're not talking shaman medicine here, because
right.
That's the way medicine works. You have antibiotics that target bacteria and things like that, and then we're currently dealing with people right now targeting treatment for COVID-19. But there was a solution when we're at I guess the beginnings of people deciding or exactly what extent the CBD works and how it works. And I want to tell the listeners, yesterday, Kanahou and Tiffany came by and they dropped off samples. And last night, I took I used some of the edibles. I rubbed some of the ointment on Abby's shoulder, because she's having issues with her shoulder, and I took oil before I went to bed. Now, since I became sober, I'm going to tell you. I'm just going to talk about real briefly what I experienced, and then we can continue.
Cool.
I have had, before I became sober again, I had issues with anxiety. I have a problem sleeping. I had a hard time letting go of thoughts that weren't helpful. Meaning that for me, anxiety was like a replay of an idea that would make me feel uncomfortable. And that's anxiety pretty much for me. It's just replaying, not letting go, trying not to focus on it. And while you're trying not to focus, you're focusing on it. And so I had those issues and stuff. Now I don't seem to have that, but I still have an active mind. And also I was experiencing some discomfort in my mouth, because I have like one side of my teeth. Every so often, it seems like my teeth are crowded, and I have some dental pain. Not dental pain as in a rotting tooth or things like that, just an overcrowding of teeth, and it caused some discomfort. And that went away almost immediately. And there was a level of calmness that occurred. Though I imagine that if I was even more disquieted, that really would have helped. But I wasn't. I wasn't clouded, and it didn't really change my mental demeanor, other than my well-being. And this morning I did it. This morning, about a half hour before, and when Kanahou and I were setting up to do this interview, the phone call dropped, I think, 3 times. And normally, in that case, I would get frustrated. Now, I don't get frustrated. Once again, I'm going to give the caveat that I don't get as frustrated as I did when I was drinking. But now there was just this level of, well, I've done this. This is show 267. How could I be nervous? I'm recording right now. And we had to stop, and I'm totally comfortable. I'm not all worked up about, hey, this is an hour and 14 minutes. But Kanahou, I can record up to 3 hours and produce a show that's 3 hours long. Should I produce a show that's 3 hours long? That's something we can leave later. But there's 267 episodes. I'm not going to get worked up about it, and I don't. So I have to say, I have to give it 2 thumbs up. I'm totally relaxed. I'm drinking halfway through a 20-ounce cup of coffee. I'm not getting the jitteries from it. Being sober, I cannot. Listen, I loved marijuana. I absolutely love marijuana. I wasn't an avid user of it. I don't know why I wasn't. but and I can't really use it because I'm an alcoholic. And but I knew enough about the last 3 years about CBD. Now when you introduced the idea to me that we're going to do a show about this, I didn't want to make it into a long commercial, but I don't have a problem with turning it into a long commercial. I just thought, we got a whole story about your life. Look at the hardships and stuff, and this is what I'm not going to call it the culmination. This is a big part of it right now. And I wanted you to go. We're going to talk about your products. We're going to talk about what CBG, the difference between CBD and CBG is, and what you use it for. But I just told you right now, I think I gave you a true assessment of what I feel like. How's that sound?
That's great. Yeah. That's great. And that makes me feel good. What you just said right there is the reason that I started this company. Because I saw the benefits in myself, my wife, and different people that I had, shared it with, that I was like, man, like this would be a great opportunity. As having that entrepreneur spirit, I thought I could help more people. I'm already helping the world by replenishing our water supply, but then also this is another way, because I know that this society with mobile phones and instant gratification and everything's fast, that I think people could use a break. I think people could use a break from themselves, and that's kind of what you described. Is like, look, it's like this feeling, this instant feeling of wanting to take over. But then the CBG is just sitting in there, like relaxing you, going like, it's no big deal. Everything's good. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you get used to it and you're like, oh yeah. And what that does is it starts to change your own behavior. And like I said, it's just an activator, right? It just activates the endocannabinoid system. Because I know when we were talking about it before, you're like, well, I don't know if I don't want to know what to say, and I don't want to give you a bad review. And to me, there's no bad review out there. I haven't come across one yet. Even a lady was like, oh, it just didn't do anything for me. And I'm like, great, that's fine. You maybe.
Yeah. That was my concern was, because there are times, oh my God, even now that I can use this. Right now when I combat my, when I have out of control mind, when I feel I'm close to picking up or thinking about picking up, that I need to do something. And for me, sometimes that's prayer and meditation, going to a meeting, and taking a step back. But it's nice to have a tool an extra tool in the toolbox that doesn't interfere with my sobriety, and this is one of them. And it could be, listen, we use coffee. Coffee changes the effects, and I can honestly say this: the magnitude of change. Now, beneficial change. I can't wait to try this when I really need it.
Yeah.
When I have pains, because I'm a fitness instructor, and I've had the things where I had my lower back pain. I'm feeling aches. I have inflammation in certain parts of the body. I'm fortunate because I am significantly older than you, but I've been fortunate that I haven't had any trauma to parts of my body that I'm feeling later in life. So the one thing I have is I was a heavy smoker for years, and I think from my but even then, gosh, I would hesitate. I don't want to attribute this, but I haven't had that morning cough this morning too.
It's weird, I'm not right? Like there's so many different things. You're just like, this can't be right.
I know. I don't want to suggest that, because it's already, I gave it a good review. So why even go crazy? Because there's going to be a time when I'm going to be able to use it, and it's going to be when when I'm disturbed.
Right.
And obviously, always I'm that disturbed, I'm going to hurt myself and stuff like that. My first thing may not be the reach for the CBD. It could be, if it's easy, if it's right there and stuff. It's going to be a couple second. But there's also, reach out and call someone and things like that. That we got to be proactive. But I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, if anytime, and you seem to be someone always searches for a natural solution.
Yeah.
So I mean, you do it. You do walk the walk. We may not agree on everything, but I really admire your embracing of the electric vehicle. And but I mean, I'm going to transition that to this CBD thing. This is all about sustainability, and I think if you get back to just thinking about how you get your product, what you do. Let's say, okay, so the line of your products. We're going to let's do the introduction to the company. What's it called?
It's called The Kind CBD. That's DA space KIND CBD. And it's a play off of words a little bit because I'm from Hawaii. And as you know, in Hawaii, there's a term that, they use in there. It's called Dakine, which is DAKINE. Dakine basically means whatchamacallit. If you don't know a name for something or you're trying to describe something, you say, oh, grab me Dakine. And at the same time, you're pointing at something and the other person relates and is like, oh, that's what he meant. So it can be anything, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, that was already taken. But I thought, you know what, being that
whatchamacallit was already taken?
No, Dakine was already taken.
Oh, was? Oh, I didn't know. I thought.
Yeah, because it's a huge surf brand.
Okay.
Yeah, and clothing line and apparel.
Been
around for a long time. So I thought, well, the American or the mainland, kind of name for it, I could just put a D instead of an E, and it would still sound the same. And found it. It was available. The Kind CBD.
Okay.
And I bought the website.
I don't think, I wouldn't know the difference. I assumed it was Hawaiian, so that's nice that you admit it. And, I'm a big believer in simple messaging, and it does have a feeling. The words itself, it does have does hint at well-being,
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, it's a double play on words. It's just like the kind, like I'm talking about that, but kind is in there as well. So kind to your body.
And it's very simple. You source it out. You're sourcing your product from?
We have two small farms, one out in Las Vegas, Nevada, and one in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this is it's very easy for you to list the where the ingredients come from.
Correct.
In this day and age, where you got so many compounds and stuff like that, there was it was not too long ago you heard about compounding pharmacies, the lack of regulation and control over that. But when you're working with something that's made from a natural product, with very little additives to it, that you have a freedom of like saying this is what it is, right? This is what it is.
Right.
You look at it, and this is your when they give the listen what side effects were being stuff like that. Side effects. What are the side effects to eating a carrot? It is what it is. Obviously, there's additives. You use a medium like your oil, right? What the oil I use? What was that? What would you call that?
So that oil is CBG. So everybody's heard of CBD. CBG is actually the mother of all cannabinoids. When the plant starts growing, the first cannabinoid that's actually created is the CBG cannabinoid. And that cannabinoid is the mother of all the other cannabinoids. So where CBD comes from, CBDN, CBD, and regular CBDA, also Delta 9 THC, where it comes from, it all stems from the CBG cannabinoids. And the company that we decided to partner with in this actually uses, because CBG, okay, so a full-grown plant, right, would only actually have 1% of CBG in it because obviously it has mothered all the other cannabinoids in the plant, so it doesn't have much left, right? So in order to get CBG, you need massive amounts of biohemp, right? And then extract it through ethanol and isolate just the CBG. The company that we partner with, they have done that. A lot of expensive equipment, chromatography, a lot of different things to actually extract it. And that dose that you had, the entire bottle we sell is a 30 milliliter bottle with 2,500 milligrams per 30 milliliter bottle, which works out to about 84 milligrams of pure CBG, no THC whatsoever in it. And that's what you got yesterday and today. That's what you took, which was a full 1 milliliter dose, 84 milligrams. Now it's very highly potent. And you're a big guy, you're no small fry. So I even thought, maybe we need to give him a bigger dose. But Tiffany's like, no, let's do the 1 mil and let's see how it affects him. And obviously, just that one effect, you're seeing the effects of it. The one dose, you're seeing the effects of it.
So we know hemp has a lot of multiple uses for it besides just developing, getting CBD, CBG, and all those things. And I don't want to put you on the spot on that, but it just came to me on that. Are there other uses that come from the plants when they're growing these? Do you know?
The hemp?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hemp has been used in the United States of America for a long time.
Oh, I know, rope and paper. I know, but are they doing it? You can make a compressed building material from it. I know that. But are they, or do you know if they're, because I know there's still some restrictions on it maybe. Are they able to use that and sell that product?
Yeah, I mean, we sell it in many different forms, right? So the oil you tasted, right, and the edible you tasted, but we also have the actual flower people smoke, just like you would smoke a joint. So it comes in a different form, and you can use that, and that's legal in all 50 states.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the plant itself, the remnants of the plant itself, like using it like almost like a Native American would. You're using every part of it. Meaning, you take the plant. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think they are doing a lot of different. Well, now that it's opened up and scientists are actually allowed to research, I think bigger and better things are coming.
Yeah, I think
because it was such a taboo before.
I think it's really wonderful if you think about it, because there is, and I think it's a natural progression of it. If they're not, they will be doing soon, because it kind of makes sense. If you had the byproduct of developing this, and you say, well, what we have left over is worth something too. There was in the winemaking process, sometimes they used to take the grapes over and they make another residual alcoholic product from that. There are people always thinking. They're thinking ahead nowadays and saying, oh, listen, we have this left over. What can we do with it? And I think this industry has a lot to offer when it comes like that. So you came about this. You were doing research and stuff like that, and you developed your product line. You have a place. I know you sell. You have in the Keys. You said I'm going to try to remember 6 places that are sold in the Keys right now. Or is it 12?
4 places.
4. Okay, good.
4.
Okay, well, eventually it'll be 6, I imagine, or 12.
And
we'll
exactly.
go through all the
Thanks for
progression.
speaking that out. I
to
appreciate
6, 12, whatever, 20. Right now, we'll talk about where they can get it now. We do have listeners in here. Where can they get it now?
Okay, so they can go, so we'll start at the furthest south. So in the city of Layton, there's a Quick Mart grocery store. We offer it there. It's called Long Key Quick Mart. Move up the road in Isla Mirada, across from Capital Bank, where they have the farmers market and the 24-hour gym. There's a little smoke shop there called Weird Trees. They were our first endorser of our product, and they have a lot of our different products there. And then further up from there, Glenda's hair salon.
Oh, Glenda Solar
there.
Glenda Solar. Yeah, I know Glenda. Yeah.
And then up the road from there in Key Largo, Mother Earth.
Mother Earth, and Mother Earth is
right by next to Al's Carpet, right across from Discount Auto, Advanced Auto, I guess.
And you have a website?
And we have a website. It's dakindcbd.com. DAKINDCBD.com.
Yeah, and so we're you had the edibles, and the edible the edible I tried was more like a gummy worm or gummy tape. Would that be correct, or how would you call it? I'm not an aficionado. It's pretty tasty.
A belt.
I'm a candy. I'm a candy guy, and I'm also. It's funny that you gave me that, because I do tend towards the sour, and I like sweet tarts and all that stuff. So that was right up my alley right there. And so everything. So with the oil, you said you put in your coffee in the morning?
Yeah, there's so many different things to do it. Yeah, put it in your oil, put it in your smoothie you make with your strawberries and bananas. You know what I mean?
I detected the taste that was in it. Was that the taste of? Was that a flavor added to it, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what's it? Elderberry? What was it?
So it's a berry. It's a berry flavor.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've really contoured our brand kind of around the Keys. So we offer 2 different CBG oils and 2 different flavors, the same strength, and we call one of them Oceanside, and we call one of them Bayside. So the one that you had is called Oceanside.
Oceanside. Okay. Yeah, that was very pleasant. So I mean.
And I think one of the reasons why we, because we had been, when we were doing our research, tasting CBD oils and hemp oils, and gosh, man, tell you the truth, a lot of this stuff tasted like bong water. You know what I mean? It was very hempy. You know what I mean? It was very hempy. And because the taste was so distracting, you almost didn't even notice if there was even the effects of it. You know what I mean? And a lot of these products out here are diluted down. And so being so conscious about how many milligrams are in that 30 milligrams, they could sell you one that says 100 milligrams. Well, that means each drop is like 1 or 2 milligrams. And you're not going to feel anything like that. And it really feels like snake oil at that point. So that's why in our brand, we want the highest quality, right? The highest quality you can get. So that way, if you want to take just a little drop, you can take it, but at least you're going to feel it. You know what I mean? If you need more, it's there for you too. You know what I mean? But you don't have to drink the whole thing as well, right? Yeah. Because it's so potent. And so that was one of our huge deals to overcome when we were building this product line, was it has to taste good. And every time I've showed somebody, giving them a sample, they're just like, wow, right off rip, because it fills your mouth with this berry, this almost blueberry flavor, and you're just like, wow, you're kind of like, I could, and you're going to taste it for, a good, decent amount of time after it's in your mouth. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Just to alleviate concerns, when people are tested for marijuana usage, they're tested for the presence of THC. So you don't really have to worry about how much CBD you have in your system.
Correct.
A lot of people aren't aware of that.
So our oil is THC free. Okay, so there's not even the 0.3, which is the law. Okay, but some of our other products have some no more than 0.3 THC in them, which is not enough to make the psychoactive adjustment in your head, but it is enough to tag a test, because they don't have a test that will see what level THC you have in your body. It either you have THC or you don't.
Okay.
So that was super important to us too, is to offer products on both sides to people, right? Because some people, maybe they can't have any THC in their system.
Yeah,
the oil works great for
pilots or boat captains and stuff like that. Right now.
Correct.
You can have drank a bottle of bourbon 24 hours ago, but you can't have 0.03 THC in your body. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny.
Very ridiculous.
Yes. So I have to give it, I'll give it flying colors there. And I want to say we're putting in the show notes a link where you can go and look at some of the products you offer. I would, you mentioned coffee. I drink my coffee black and sometimes with cream and sugar. I've been drinking, I drink tea too. I like a lavender tea and things like that. And if I don't want to do any caffeine or anything like that, when I want to relax, and I imagine that the next time I try one of those, I definitely want to put that in it.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's going to change the way you drink coffee. If you drink coffee black, you don't do much sugar or anything like that. It really, the whole entire cup now turns into a different type of coffee for you. So you're not only getting your caffeine fix, but you're also calming your body throughout the same thing, and it tastes good. I mean, it's the best of all worlds, really.
Imagine that would. I do a lot of coffee though, so it
doesn't take much, though.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay, good. No, what I'm saying is I do one tea, so I probably drink the one tea with it and get my dose, and then my coffee, because I may drink 3 cups of coffee. I am a fanatic that way. I do fill the pot up when I make it. A lot of that I transfer. It may sound like I'm trading one addiction for another, but it's definitely a much more beneficial one for me. But when I'm talking coffee, not CBD, and I shouldn't guess. Right. I don't know why I would introduce that idea, but I would like, if there's any listeners out there, if you do have any issues with we were mentioned, there was inflammation, there's there's a whole bunch of issues that doing it. There's digestive, there's mild headaches.
Even girl time.
Oh, during
for women.
When women are menstruating.
It's with just a little quick story about how my wife started using the CBG as being the what's it called? I'm drawing a blank here. Not the scapegoat, but the she tried it for our company and used it daily, and then came back with feedback.
Oh, she was a test subject. And, she was your test subject.
Test subject. There you go.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's what I wanted to say. I'm sorry. It just.
I'm that way. Listen, I haven't drank in a long time, and I'll be sitting there searching for a word. But yeah, the test subject. She was his test subject for the. Okay.
Right. And so what she started doing is taking a half a ml, so half of the dose that you just got today. Yeah. Every morning, she would she wakes up, does her makeup, she takes a drop, and she didn't really notice a big change. Mm-hmm. But what she did notice was things started to disappear, right? So she said to me she didn't even know that she had anxiety until she actually started to take this. Mm-hmm. So her normal before would be, get up in the morning, getting ready to go to school, going to work, whatever, heart palpitations, palms are sweaty, very nervousness, you know what I mean? And as she started taking it, she started realizing, oh wow, like these things aren't happening anymore. And oh wow, I'm feeling a lot more confident. I'm feeling a lot more assertive. And she started to express herself and come into who she really was. You know what I mean? Just by taking this simple, natural additive every day, just like people take vitamins, but having a real effect on the mental stability of her.
Yeah. You know,
which was amazing.
Anxiety, nervousness, social discomfort, all these things, just from experience. The nice thing about psychology is anybody can have an opinion about it, and these feelings act as governors. Anxiety, agoraphobia, or anything as governors in stop you from acting sometimes, or prevent you from going to your full potential.
Yeah.
So if you're fearful,
right. You hit it on the head there, Jim.
And so you're afraid to say something, you're afraid to do something, you're afraid to take the next step. Sometimes it is just trying to relax and going with the flow. And we who are that are in recovery feel it even more so sometimes, because we used to deal with it another time, and the things we used actually became the inhibition. And when we started coming out of it again, when you're in the middle of your actively using, yes, you're feeling okay while you're using it and stuff like that. It's when you start coming down and off these things, and your withdrawal and your chemical cleansing in your body and stuff like that. When your alcohol is leaving your system, when the drugs are leaving your system, you do have that drop. Now, and you don't necessarily, when you're using things like CBD or anything, let's say exercising, when you increase serotonin in your body, when you're exercising, the withdrawal from that when you're done is not detrimental. It's not depressive. It's not there's not a shame in what you're actually, because using this product, or using exercise, or drinking coffee or tea, or anything that kind of, you're using something natural that doesn't really change your state of mind, other than your sense of well-being and your sense of relaxation, and being able to alleviate that governor, that restrictor plate that stops you from acting, stops you from going ahead and saying, you know what, I'm ready to attack the day. I'm ready to go out and do these things, and being
what
nervous.
A great way to put it.
Yeah, and that's I was a big procrastinator, and your mind is powerful. The mind is a powerful thing, and we've evolved. Some people say these tension, anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing sometimes, because it shows that you're uncomfortable about something. But when it's sustained and constant, it becomes an inhibition to acting or moving on. Then we have to address it. But
because the basis of all that, like the core root of any of that, comes down to the 4-letter word, right? Which is fear.
Fear.
Right? Fake emotions appearing real. You're creating these things in your head that don't actually exist. You're making them. You're manifesting them into existence. They don't really exist.
I know, and there are things that I'm at to point out too. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying there are real things you have to deal with.
Absolutely.
But you have to deal with them. You
Right.
have to deal with them, and not dealing with things is an act of defiance against self. Refusing to try to get better. So we should all try to endeavor to feel better, at least, and be able to have a better life. And I think this could really help a certain segment. A lot of people out there, a matter of fact, because uh, some people may stay away from it because it doesn't do the level that they think they need. You know what I
Right.
mean? That was our former selves, you and I. I mean,
Hmm.
I didn't drink. When someone offered me a drink, I would be like, no, but you can give me the bottle. And that
Right.
and that did not help. That
Hmm.
made it worse. And then sometimes when we broach him with like another solution, people say, well, this is kind, your mind will tell you, well, this is just crazy. You're just uh, that won't work. Well,
Hmm.
unless you tried it, you can't say that. You can't say that. I mean, you can think it.
And we also recommend
What?
we recommend for our clients and stuff is to take it on a constant basis
Mm-hmm.
as almost like a lubricant for your endocannabinoid system to keep it activated. That's why she took it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And activating it every day and keeping it activated, you start seeing benefit 10, 15, 20 days down the line to 30 days where you're like, oh my gosh, this is my new normal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not freaking out. You know what I mean? This is my new normal. My palms aren't sweaty. I love it. And then, like you just said, it in turn gives you more opportunity to live a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a better way to feel better.
Yep. So it is. Well, listen, I think we learned a lot today, and I want to thank you for that. And I want to also tell the listeners we're going to put a link in the show notes, and we'll see about having a longer term by putting in our sponsors' notes here. And I think we're probably going to be doing that. We'll work that out. But once again, that website, Kanahou?
It's Dakind, CBD, DAKIND, CBD.com.
.com. And we're going to post that in the show notes, like I said.
And right now we have a 420 special, and we'll put that in. We'll put the discount code in there, and we offer 20% off and free shipping. And we also in the Florida Keys locally, we'll come and drop it by your house. You know, contact free. Put it outside your door. You order it online. We'll run it right up to you anywhere within about 30 miles or so. And if you want us to go to Marathon or whatever, we just ask that you spend at least $100.
Wow.
And we'll go ahead and run it down to you. Yeah.
Well, that's customer service for you.
Yep.
They thank you very much for coming on there, telling your story. And
thank you so much for having me.
And you know what? Maybe we could do this on a regular basis. Okay. So
I would love to.
Yep. Okay.
It's been really a pleasure talking to you, Jim. Really a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kanahou, and thank you for the samples. And I'm sure I'll be trying that in the future. Okay.
Absolutely. All right.
Talk to you later. I'm going to start playing the music now.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm going to say goodbye. I'd like to thank you all for listening. I know it's been an especially long show, but I think you got a lot of good information from it. Come back and listen to us next time. Goodbye.